Welcome back to the Power 2 here on College Football Addiction. It is playoff quarterfinal week. Boys, Christmas is done. We are almost done with 2025 as well. How's you guys' Christmas?
Christmas was fantastic. Got to see a lot of my family this past week. Can't complain. I'm still kind of in the Christmas spirit. Like, I'm probably going to wear this Christmas vacation hat for a couple more weeks, to be completely honest. And I have Christmas themed Brooks running shoes that I can only wear for like a month at a time. So those will still be worn into January so I can get my money's worth. But Christmas was very good. I was very happy. How about you guys?
See, I love the fact that Tom and I are so different when it comes to the holidays. The second that December 26th rolls around, goodbye tree, goodbye ornaments, goodbye outside decorations. I am done with you. It is time for Valentine. It's time for Arbor Day. That's what we're looking forward to.
There you go.
Tom's still got his tree up in the background. He still has got all the Christmas gear on. I was so happy to see Christmas come and go. And now we get to talk more college football playoff, because that to me is ultimately the gift that keeps on giving. On top of, Big 12 fans saying that I hate them, even though I picked Houston to beat the crap out of LSU last night as an SEC shill. God forbid that you say that, hey, somehow, some way, the fourth strings for LSU played well. Apparently, it's not giving enough credit to a team I picked to win.
Our Christmas was good. It just very much becomes about the kids, and they had fun. I can't really do the December 26th thing, like turn it off. My parents are divorced, and so we end up seeing we do the 4 Christmases thing.
Right.
Now, fortunately, they all just come to us, so that is kind of nice. But we did Christmas on Christmas Day. Then my dad came over the next day. Then my mom came over. So we've had 3 days of Christmas. Today is the first day where it's like, all right, we're kind of done with this, right? We're finally over it, and I'm ready for 1 Eastern for the Bucks to break my heart again. So there we go. They started 5. They're much like FSU. They started 5-2, and now we're 7-8, something terrible.
You have to win to stay in the playoff picture.
Yeah.
That's basically all it comes down to.
And it's like, do we want to? It's kind of like the Florida State stuff. Not to go on a tangent here for a minute, but it's like, I don't like Todd Bowles. I don't think he's great. I think you see the success that Liam Cohen's having right now in Jacksonville, and you're like, man, that sucks. And Dave Canales, your last 2 offensive coordinators in Charlotte as well. And so you're just like, do I really want to make the playoffs and go 1 more year with this guy, or is it better to, just to go lose in the first round or whatever? But anyway, all right, back to college football. A great game last night between BYU and Georgia Tech in the best bowl in America. And then the Houston LSU one was really good too. So good football yesterday. We take a break from college today and go to the NFL. And then
I'm very thankful you did not mention that Virginia versus Missouri game, because that
terrible. It was terrible. The finish was good. The finish was fun, kind of exciting, but it was terrible.
TJ, Matt Zollers had more passing yards on the final drive than he did on his first 11 drives combined. That tells me all I need to know about how bad this offense looked yesterday. Oh, by the way, the play calling was absolutely dreadful. It's something I can't even stomach. And lo and behold, maybe the public eye was right about Eli Drinkowitz stuff. You're a product of Kirby Moore helping bail you out of trouble, buddy. I don't know. We're gonna find out though, because welcome to the party. Welcome to the party, Chip Lindsey, as the new offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Another disappointment yesterday, Clemson. My goodness. Tom and I were talking about this before the game. I was like, Clemson 2.5 feels safe, doesn't it?
It did.
Their offense will move a little bit, and Dabo was just like, nah, dog, we ain't.
It was bizarre because Klubnik, Randall, and Moore were all available. You were missing Wesco and Williams, was it? I forget the...
Antonio Williams, yeah.
Antonio Williams. So you're missing 2 of your top 3 wide receivers. You had some replacements along the offensive line. A lot of drops, and some of that, the weather had a little bit of a factor, not too substantial. Like Penn State felt it too. There were some drops, some slippage here and there, but just Clemson's offense has been inconsistent all year, and they just kind of stacked that up. And then Penn State's backups held them to their lowest yardage total and tied them for their lowest point total of the season. So I did not see that coming in a game where Katron Allen was a late scratch medically. Denied Dennis Sutton plays the entire game, and it proves to be a program stabilizing bowl victory for Penn State in this era where bowl games mean nothing. It clearly meant a lot to Penn State.
How dare you say those vile words, Tom, that bowl games mean nothing? I was fully enthralled watching as the New Mexico Bowl between Two of the best teams in the G5 level, North Texas and San Diego State, were playing for pride in that Santa Fe trophy, only to find out that quite literally half of the stars from North Texas are now entering the transfer portal.
I forgot the name of the bowl game, but New Mexico versus Minnesota in
what
overtime.
a
Hell of a game. Hell of a game. That was awesome.
Fantastic game out in Chase Field. By the way, more games at baseball stadiums, ladies and gentlemen. I'm for it. I'm all for the Fenway Bowl, Pinstripe Bowl, and the Guaranteed Rate Bowl down at Chase Field. Fantastic performance that we saw from Jason X squad against Minnesota, who, again,
Minnesota wins bowl games. That's all they do.
Who needs hypothetical wins for the Big Ten when they can actually win?
PJ Fleck has no expectations to do anything other than go 500, go even a little over 500. And if you win the bowl game, that's awesome. There's no expectation for him to make the playoff at all.
Let's get into some of these games that, speaking of that playoff that Tom was talking about, let's start with Miami and Ohio State. This is a fun one. I'm not going to fully buy into Miami here just yet, but I'll let Tom start because of the Big Ten side with the Buckeyes.
The best chance for Miami in this game is to attempt to duplicate what worked for Indiana in the Big Ten championship game. Obviously, that wound up being a win for Indiana and the only loss for Ohio State on their schedule. But it was the manner in which Indiana did it, and that for most of the season, we've seen how Ohio State, they want to throw the football. If you take away the run against lesser competition, they really don't care. They're all right getting pass happy because they have Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Max Clare, Brandon Ennis, you name it in the passing game, and Julian Sayin has been excellent this year. So the best bet for Miami is to take away the run and then dare this team to move the ball through the air every single down, because that's really what Indiana did. Indiana has a very talented front four and front seven. They were able to get pressure on Julian Sayin and make this offensive line struggle. I would argue Miami has a better defensive line than what Indiana presents. And I think Bain and Mesidor can have a lot of success against this Ohio State offensive line. However, I don't think this Miami secondary is going to be able to hold up for 4 quarters against that Ohio State passing game. On the flip side, Miami and Carson Beck and Fletcher at running back, I thought they persevered in a difficult environment. We talked about the wind against Texas A&M, being on the road at Kyle Field. It was a very difficult environment. I think Carson Beck's play has been up and down this season. I know people are going to point towards, it was windy against Texas A&M. Well, his stat totals look really good. He has games where he'll throw up 3 or 4 interceptions. And this is the best defense in the country, and this is the best defense remaining in the college football playoff. Ohio State is able to get after pressure with 3 guys, 4 guys up front, one of the most active and athletic linebacker corps in the country, a really deep secondary, youth, and veteran leadership from guys like Caleb Downs. So I think this is going to be tough sledding for Carson Beck and company because Matt Patricia's defense disguises so well. And I think that's going to give Carson Beck some trouble. They're going to have to be a lot better in the passing game than they've been as of late. And again, I understand the environment and the weather against Texas A&M, but that passing game just did not have it. And Malachi Toney just did not look like Malachi Toney for most of that game. They've got to fix that. Leaning on Fletcher, I think, is going to be helpful, but I just don't think they're going to see the same results that they saw against Texas A&M in that department. I think they can have success running the football against Ohio State, but they're going to need to stay committed to it long term. And in a game like this, where the margin of error is so thin, I'm not sure what the line is, TJ, maybe you can help me out. This is where game management is critical. And this is going to be interesting in that you have Brian Hartline, who's left the program. He's off to USF. So you have Ryan Day calling the plays, which he hasn't done in a couple of seasons. Not that he's incapable of it, but it's a different set of responsibilities. Your eye is a little bit less on game management. And then we know how Mario Cristobal does with game management. Those decisions are going to be really fascinating in this game.
The line right now, 9.5 for Ohio State. Here's a question for...
Big number, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Vegas is telling you that now, and I'll tell you this, we'll predict in a minute. I like Miami to cover that. I think it is closer than 10. I won't even wait. I do think Ohio State finds a way to win this game. But I will pose this to Cole, like super, as the Florida State guy, super, Miami biased here. Is it fair to say that Miami has a better... Now, these two units comparatively won't play each other. But is it fair to say Miami has a better offensive line than Ohio State has, and they have a better defensive line than Ohio State has? And like to me, if they're going to win this game, it's because those freaks on the defense cover up for the secondary. Like they don't like, I think Tom's point is correct. The secondary cannot match. And that's not even a discredit to Miami. The only secondary that could match is Ohio State's secondary. Right. And fortunately for the Buckeyes, they don't have to play their own secondary during games. And so if the defensive line can take over and Bain and Mesidor can go off, which will be tough because I do like Ohio State's offensive line. And then conversely, if they can give Beck enough time and open up running lanes, which that's the bigger question that I have, is if Miami can't run the ball like they did, although again, they did a really good job against that Texas A&M front. If the trenches, if that's where Miami has the advantage, then they have to play to that advantage and probably erase some things, pick up some things in those spots.
So out of curiosity, I completely spaced. Brian Hartline's not calling the plays in this game anymore?
Brian Hartline's already left the program.
He is completely gone out.
He's off the USF, if I'm
okay.
I believe Ryan Day is calling plays.
All right. I do think that when you look at the offensive lines, I know what I'm getting a little bit more in Miami, which maybe gives you the benefit of the doubt to be able to win in the trenches. And I think from the defensive line standpoint, this may be, when at its peak, the best defensive line in college football. I'm not saying that it will be on a Wednesday afternoon when they take on, or Wednesday evening in Arlington, but pound for pound, what you get with Ruben Bain coming off of one side and Akeem Mesidor coming off of the other, and the depth of the interior of the defensive line, I think it's going to propel a lot of issues for Ohio State if they're unable to get any consistency moving by able to win in the trenches. Now, again, I think that Ohio State's offensive line is great. I think Ohio State offensive line is one of the best in the country. But I also felt that way about Texas A&M going into the matchup in the first round. Texas A&M did a good job of keeping Marcel Reed upright. They entered that game only giving up 11 sacks on the season. They gave up 7 sacks in that game and 9 tackles for losses. What's funny about that, guys? Ohio State's offensive line has given up 11 sacks all season long. So you're looking at a similar method of where if you start to see a little bit of complacency or the play calling go a little bit askew, you might be able to win on the interior and put pressure on Julian Sain to have to maneuver outside the pocket and try to build a rapport deep downfield with one of his receivers, whether it be Carnell Tate or whether it be Brandon Innes or whether it be, Jeremiah Smith or even Max Clare at the tight end position. The thing is that when it comes to the momentum, I think in this game in favor of Miami in a lot of ways, Miami is going to be going up against a quarterback that isn't known for his mobility. I'm not saying that you don't have an athletic player like Julian Sain, but there were design runs for Marcel Reed in that game underneath Colin Klein that said, we're going to put the ball in Ten's hands and he's going to deliver with his legs. Where I don't think that you have that for Ohio State. You got a good rushing attack. I think that it's overblown that Bo Jackson's and, the Bo Jackson, this running game with CJ Donaldson isn't good. I don't think it's elite, but I still think it's good. You want to trust your passing attack because of what you got in the weapons of Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. What I look for Miami in this game is, can they win at the line of scrimmage? Because if they win at the line of scrimmage, what are we going to see? A lot of 2nd and 8s, a lot of 3rd and 7s. That means that you're going to have to pass the football. And I'll push back a little bit with Tom's take. I don't think that we're looking at an elite defensive backfield the way that we are with Ohio State. But this is completely flabbergasted to say that it's not a good defensive backfield. Keontae Scott coming on back in has been great. They had in their last matchup, they had a freshman defensive back making 2 big-time interceptions at the right time possible. They were able to limit a lot of the explosives downfield outside the big 51-yard play. And you got to be really impressed with what you've seen at times this year from Bryce Fitzgerald, what you've seen from guys like Xavier Lucas, and what you've seen from guys like Zachary Poser. So, I mean, there's an opportunity to where if you're able to force Julian Sain to live in 3rd and long, and you're saying, we can't run the football, we know that we're just going to be wasting a play here, you may end up seeing some opportunities to where you're able to kind of go ahead and feel pretty confident on getting a 3rd down stop and the ball back to your offense. I do agree with Tom on one thing. You got to trust the rushing attack. I need to see Mark Fletcher Jr. and what he did in the 4th quarter against Texas A&M come out of the gate early. He had 89 rushing yards, 3 runs of over 10 yards, including the 56-yard scamper. He's got to do that early on to set the tone of this game, because if I don't think what you want to do is be trailing by 14, or I'll go as far to say trailing by 10, and then say we have got to be able to win this game through the air with Carson Beck. I think Carson Beck being a game manager is a really smart game plan. It is a really overall good execution that is going to allow Ohio State to, I think, build some traction. But if you're, Miami to build some traction. But if you're asking him to start building a rapport where it's got to be 6 or 7 straight passes in a row to Keelan Marion, to CJ Daniels, and you take out Malachi Toney because they're going to double team him. They know we're not letting 10 beat us. Anybody else on the field can beat us, but we're not letting Malachi Toney be the dude that goes and becomes that next enforcer. If that's where the line of scrimmage leans, then absolutely, I think that's a massive win for Ohio State. But if it's not that way and you're able to start living in 2nd and short or 3rd and 2, Shannon Dawson, I think, has something left up in the tank to where you feel pretty confident that he's going to let it fly and maybe catch Ohio State slipping against one of the best defenses in college football.
Tom, you want to predict this? Any other big takeaways before we move on here? Tom's on mute.
Oh, boy.
I do agree with your point about Julian Sayin, and I've knocked him at points this year. I understand that this is a freshman or a first-year starter, I believe redshirt sophomore, first-year starter who has grown a lot since the Texas game. He is a very good quarterback. I didn't think he should win the Heisman Trophy at all. I sincerely believed that the tools around him were a massive contributing factor to his success. When you're throwing a rock into the ocean, you're going to hit water. So I think Julian Sayin is a very good quarterback for this system. He just needs to do all the little things that he's done this season. He is also kind of the proverbial game manager who throws a hell of a deep ball. So you just don't need him to do all that much in this game. Ohio State is going to have to come up with some answers in the running game, however. Little bits here and there to take the pressure off Julian Sayin. There is going to be that issue, and that was something that Miami did quite well against Texas A&M in terms of stopping the run. So I'm curious to see what happens in that department. I still am taking Ohio State 31-23, so I'll take the over, and I'll take Miami to cover.
Cole?
I think for me, there are 4 main elements that Miami's going to have to win in this game. But I want to start with this. Miami has earned the right to be in the college football playoff. And I felt that way when it was with the TCU situation a few years ago. Like, TCU got mollywopped by Georgia in the national championship. And they said they didn't belong. Well, they beat Michigan to get there. So the data points actually kind of conflicted at this point. So sit down and shut up. Like, Miami, they went into an environment that was very challenging to play. They were able to handle business. They nearly won by 10 points because of the field goals. If they would have made the field goals, they probably would have won by double digits. And look at how much better we'd be feeling about Miami. So they've earned the right to be in the playoffs. And honestly, I think the 10-point line is disrespectful. I think it's absolutely disrespectful because of you're not showing that this defense, when it's on point, is going to be able to shut down most quarterbacks and make them inferior and make offenses obsolete and one-dimensional. But there's 4 main points that you got to win if you're Miami in this game. Time of possession, third down conversions, explosive plays, and sacks. I think Miami can win 3. I think that they can win the time of possession. I think that they could win the explosive plays. And I think they can win the sacks. I just don't know if they're going to be able to win consistently on third down. And ultimately, that's what's going to decide it for me. And I think that Miami is going to keep this thing close. I think the lower scoring it is, it favors Miami. In fact, I would say if this is like a 17-10 game, you're telling me Miami wins this one. But I don't think that happens. I think that it's just too little, too late, big time play. Jeremiah Smith, been here, done that mentality. I got 27-20 Ohio State over Miami.
Yeah, I think it's close. I think it's fun. I'll even go slightly closer. I'll go 31. No, I'll go a little lower scoring. Yeah, I'll keep it super close. 27-24. I think Ohio State gets it done. I do think that Miami puts up a good fight. I wonder how well Miami can run the ball against this front. And to me, that is, though I do like their offensive line to keep Beck pretty clean, and I like their defensive line to be able to get after Sayin some. If they can replicate anything Indiana did, they'll be in really good shape. But at the end of the day, I just think I have a little more confidence in Ohio State to make that crucial play when it matters the most. And yeah, give me the Buckeyes 27-24. Let's play the sleeper game real quick. We'll do it all based on this game since this game is on Wednesday. If you haven't downloaded the sleeper app, this is a great time to go do that. End of the year, listen, go put $10 in. Use our code CFA. You get a 100% match up to $100. Carson Beck, 196.5 passing yards.
Less. Sorry. I just don't see it, especially against the number 1 secondary in college football.
I'm going to say more because I think it's going to be a need to come back type of situation. I think Ohio State puts them in a position where they do have to abandon the run late.
I'll go more on this. Yeah, I think they love the pop passes to Tony. They'll get extra yardage that way. I think they will try and, I think they'll be trailing. They'll need it. So I'll go more there for the same reasons as Tom. Carnell Tate, an anytime touchdown. I like how we're not using Smith. That's too easy. But does Tate get one? Smith is an auto, yes. Smith, you start to think on Smith when it's 1.5. You're like,
right.
Oh, okay, 2 touchdowns.
Right. You have to give sleeper money to actually, a lot of money.
It's like when it used to do, like Christian McCaffrey never is like never used to be a 0.5, right? Because of the way that he was used or whatever. So he'd be like a 1.5 more or less, but go ahead.
An anytime touchdown for Carnell Tate. Yeah, I'll take that. Because if anything, we've seen a lot of games this year with Ohio State where they will put a lot of focus on Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate gets to eat.
I'm going to say less because I'm going to go with the bold prediction, believe this is the game that we actually see Brandon Inniss have a career day. I'm going to say that this is the one where Julian Sayin starts to target him and Max Claremore.
I'll go more. I just think it's a little more likely that he gets in. If they really try and take away Smith, there's a good chance that he gets one. You can't really go wrong either way with either of those guys. Mark Fletcher, 53.5. This guy went for 53.5 on his biggest play of the game last week.
Yeah.
Does he get more or less than basically half 100?
I'll say more. They have to stay committed to it. They have to stick to it. They really do. So I'll say more.
More. You can have 2 runs of 40 yards, and that'll be just enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go more as well, which means he's probably going less. Right. Bo Jackson, other side of the ball, 75.5 rushing yards.
I'm going to say more. I think if there's one play of like 45 yards downfield and then you throw in a couple of other runs, I think he's going to finish with 19 carries to 22 carries and probably get right around 86 yards in the day.
I'm going to look up his stats here real quick because I don't have a good feeling.
He was great to close out the year. He had, I think, 3 100-yard performances to close out the year before the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, I think I'll go more. Yeah, I think that's fair.
I'm going to go less. I'm going to say Miami's defensive line holds their rushing attack. It's lower scoring. They pass on the secondary. So that's my reasoning there. Keelan Marion. Malachi Toney's not on this, which kind of sucks. Because he would just be an auto more for me after last week. Keelan Marion, 32.5. Former BYU. Again, the best game of probably the entire month of December yesterday in the Pop-Tart Bowl. But Keelan Marion.
I think I'm going to say more because there will probably be a focus on Malachi Toney to at least limit him. So that could create options for Marion.
I want to say more, but my gut says CJ Daniels is going to be the dude that breaks on out. So I'll go less.
I'll go less here as well. Just I have more confidence in CJ Daniels and Malachi Toney, maybe Lofton too, at tight end. Let's see. Last one, Julian Sayin, 1.5 passing touchdowns. I'll go. I haven't gone first yet. I'll go more here.
More. I just think it's the easy play.
I will also go more. Yeah, that's an easy one.
Which means that the under is going to hit.
Make sure you go check out Sleeper again. Go deposit $10 on their app. Save yourself. Well, you won't be saving anything, but you will get a free match. So appreciate Sleeper for their support.
It's basically a free bet. It's exactly what it is.
Cole, let's go to the SEC for a sec.
Sure.
Well, I guess this is the Big Ten too. Maybe I should have let Tom do this since they are the 1 seed overall, but Tom got to do Ohio State. So we'll start with, what does Bama need to do to pull the upset off?
Yeah, a lot of things. I mean, like for starters, let's just start off with this. The fact that you saw the composure and the mentality to be down by 17 and find a way to guarantee that you at least tie the game going into halftime 2 weeks ago in Norman speaks volumes about where this roster is and what this mentality of the program is. And that's something that I think is going to be really detrimental for Kalen DeBoer to be able to kind of set the tone going into practice this week. It's It may not feel this way, but to some it will. It's us against the world because there are still people doubting Alabama. I quite literally still have been doubting Alabama. I think TJ and Tom at times this year have doubted Alabama, and for good reason. But you're able to go change the narrative of a game with a 34-7 differential after the first quarter against a very good national championship-esque led Oklahoma defense in their house. Yeah, you deserve some credit, even though there were a couple of miscues that were very much forced by Alabama, but also forced by bad play design and really kind of easy breaks. So, like, that's where it is. So, I think that at the same time, this is a very good defense for Indiana. Like, if you are doubting Indiana still, after them going 13-0 and them going to be able to punch their ticket to win the Big Ten, and they have a top 5 offense, a top 5 defense, and a top 5 scoring defense, a top 5 scoring offense, they can beat you in so many ways. So what does Alabama have to do? Alabama has to play with tempo in this game. That's number one. I think that there are going to be a lot of plays, whether it be out of the backfield to Jam Miller or Daniel Hill, whether it be to the short passes to Lazier Brooks or to Jeremy Bernard. This is a defensive line that will get after you, and they will be able to win. So Ty Simpson's not going to have a lot of time to throw. It's not going to be like a 7-step drawback and surveying the field and going, oh, now I got a Jeremy Bernard downfield for 30 yards. You got to be moving with quickness. You have to be at the line of scrimmage understanding I got 2 reads, and by the time that I get through to my second read, I better know where the football is going. That will be able to, I think, throw Indiana off of the tempo bit and kind of make them have to either start going with an all-out blitz with cover 0 splits, or they're going to have to start playing more in coverage that will open up the running lane or open up running lanes on passing downs for Ty Simpson to kind of step on up and deliver and make a couple of big-time plays in the open field. So that, to me, is priority number 1. Number 2 is you got to establish the play-action pass, and I think that you got to be able to do that pretty early on in the game. You need to catch Indiana slipping, and momentum has got to be in your favor with 1 or 2 plays. This is the Ryan Williams game. And I know a lot of people are going to say you can't trust Ryan Williams. He's a body catcher. He is. He has had far too many drops this year. He has had far too many plays that probably should have led to touchdowns. They either led to turnovers or bad snaps. This is the moment that you need to see him step on up because I think everyone is starting to figure out Lazier Brooks is a difference maker. Isaiah Horton has been the number 1 receiver since the month of November. Jeremy Bernard is the number 1 receiver consistently this year. Josh Cuevas is a chain mover, and he does a good job being a security blanket for Alabama on short downs. This is where Ryan Williams maybe still getting a little bit of respect from Indiana, but not enough to where they're going to be double teaming him. Has got to be able to go on up with the play action pass. You need to see that big 35-yard gain downfield. You need to see him in lockstep with a defensive back like D'Angelo Ponce, pulling the ball down for a gain of 40. And then once you get into that area, you can't take your foot off the gas. You got to continue to move with tempo, and you got to be able to keep Indiana from slipping. Because the second that you allow them to go ahead and take momentum back, that's where the game can easily turn on its axis. On the flip side, for Alabama's defense, you have got to be willing to give up a few plays in the passing attack to slow down this run game. If you are Indiana, you are averaging 5.5 yards a game. Alabama is giving up 3.86 yards per game on the ground. It's not elite, but it's not bad. Like, people want to go ahead and talk about Alabama not being able to defend the run. No, Alabama can defend the run. They've just allowed a couple of explosive plays that hinder their overall success in the public eye. So to me, you got to be willing to give up one of those passes downfield to Omar Cooper, to Elijah Surratt, to the tight ends, if that means that you're forcing Fernando Mendoza to live in 2nd and 8. If you're forcing it to be a 3rd and 7 and you know that it is going to be a passing down. Because at that point, while Fernando Mendoza is a surgeon and he has been on point delivering strikes across the middle of the field, Alabama's strength has been in secondary this year. With Bray Hubbard, with Dijon Lee, with Xavier Brown being able to create turnovers. That has been an area to where if you keep the ball in front of you, 95% of the time, they're able to win the football game. So you want Fernando Mendoza to show off why he was the Heisman Trophy winner, why he was so elite at making these small mental cues at the line of scrimmage to be able to help benefit a team like Indiana, why tight little windows were not a problem for 15, and why he ultimately was the reason his team made it to the Big Ten championship, and he's the reason why he was considered college football's finest player. That, to me, is where I think that you lean if you're Indiana. And if you're able to take that away if you're Alabama and then force a couple of 3-and-outs, that's really big. I go back to the point that I made in the Oklahoma game, and it came back to bite me in the ass, but so far I don't think I'm wrong on this one. how Ty Simpson looks on the first 3 drives will more than likely tell you what is going to be the outcome of this game. If he's surgical, if he's able to look like he did against Oklahoma, if he did against Oklahoma in the second half, if he did against Georgia, if he did against Tennessee, I think that you favor Alabama to keep this thing interesting. And I'll go as far to say that the higher scoring in this game actually favors the Crimson Tide than it does Indiana. I think as much as you want to say that Alabama does not want to give up a lot of explosives, especially against a top 5 scoring offense in college football, I think that if you're putting more pressure on Indiana to deliver, especially when it comes to the explosive plays downfield, that might end up helping Alabama out a little bit because of then you know what is it going to take to win this football game.
Before the Oklahoma game, I was on the record saying I thought Alabama had the ability to beat Indiana in this game. I think the forecast is saying that it's going to be kind of inclement weather, could be a little bit nasty. I still think that benefits Indiana, a team who is better at running the football, as we've seen so far this season. So if you're Alabama, in all the ways that Cole just outlined, I think there are too many things that have to happen for Alabama to win. There aren't that many things that need to happen for Indiana to win this game. You can look at the Oklahoma game, and I've said, I think Oklahoma lost that game. I don't necessarily think Alabama won that game. I give a lot of credit to Alabama. You did score 27 unanswered points. 7 of that you got on a pick 6, which completely changed the momentum of the game and really gave a huge spark to Alabama. But this was a team that was 2 of 12 on 3rd down against Oklahoma, which I was on the record saying I thought Oklahoma was the best defense in the college football playoff, and you beat them at home. There is a lot of credit to Alabama that they deserve in that situation. I just don't like this matchup based on what I saw Alabama put on tape against Oklahoma and what they put on tape, frankly, most of this season and the back half of this season, especially. They've been inconsistent. There isn't a tremendous rushing threat to speak of. Ty Simpson had to virtually win that game on his own. He got help from Isaiah Horton, but the rest of that wide receiver core does need to step up. You need to have a big performance by your defense if you're Alabama. And then also Alabama needs to start hot because they saw the advantage of having that tremendous lead against Oklahoma. Granted, it kind of took place in the middle of the game. But if you can do that somehow against Indiana and you can create a gap, you have a chance. I just don't think it's a significant chance. I think that Indiana looks primed for this game, but I've said it before. Cignetti and Indiana are playing in the biggest game of their entire lives. Cignetti's biggest game ever as a coach. Indiana's biggest game ever as a program. All of the lights are on you, as they were last season when this team blew it against Ohio State in the regular season and got thumped by Notre Dame in the first round of the college football playoff. The question for a while has been, is Indiana a pretender? The win against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game silenced a lot of critics. Beating Oregon at Eugene earlier on this season, it silenced a lot of critics. But if you fall asleep in the Rose Bowl against a blue blood Alabama program that can beat you, but they're going to need a lot of help to do it. If Indiana falters here, it is going to be pretty bad in Bloomington and pretty bad for Curt Cignetti after the fact. So I still like Indiana in this game overall. I think there's a lot of things that have to go right in order for Alabama to win.
Yeah, I'll say that there are definitely, it won't look good for Indiana, but Indiana, again, the losingest program in college football history, getting to 2 11-win campaigns and 2 college football playoff appearances with Cignetti. Like, the man can already have a statue built of him, for my opinion, what he's going to accomplish. Like that's just it. The thing that I'm going to be really interested, Tom, and TJ, I want to bring this up with you too, is this is one of those games where Alabama and Miami both got tested in their first matchup. So they got to figure out what were the issues of their teams and what were some things that they didn't like about what they saw in the game plan that they can now correct and put themselves in a better spot to maybe switch the game on its axis a little bit. And I bring that up because last season, look at what happened when Oregon played against Ohio State. Ohio State learned from its mistakes in that matchup against Tennessee, and they put belt to ass early on in that game. It was 14-0 before we even got done with the overtime match between Arizona State and Arizona State and Texas. You look at that game against for Penn State. Again, it was Boise State, but they came out swinging after what they learned from their mistakes against SMU. And the same thing for Notre Dame in the matchup against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. So does that play a factor in this matchup to where maybe you do slightly lean and Alabama is able to correct the multitude of errors from that early first quarter mistakes? Are they going to put themselves in a position where maybe they're up 14-0 going into halftime? And then you watch as Kirk Cignetti and company is now struggling to come up with some ideas on how they're going to be able to respond.
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting about all four of these games is the rest factor, the rest versus rust factor, right? I think for Oregon and Georgia, for Oregon and Ole Miss, it's a bigger deal because they had largely non-competitive games. And so they didn't have to go pedal to the metal. I wonder with Alabama and Miami, you're still coming off of a pretty emotional, dramatic win in the ways that both of them happened. Now, 10 and 11 days ago, so it's not like they were super recent. You've had a little bit more time to digest that, stop reading those press clippings, all those things. But like we talked about last year, the teams with byes didn't perform very well. Now, those teams were Boise State, Arizona State, who played well enough, but started slow with the long layoff. And then Georgia without a quarterback, or frankly, the quarterback they have that'll be playing this week too, but without their starting quarterback at that moment. So this year, I think, is the truer test of if you really want that bye or not. And it wouldn't surprise me if Alabama started a little bit faster just due to not having been off for nearly a month. It wouldn't shock me if Miami started a little bit faster, although they've been kind of a slow starting team for a lot of this year, minus when they came to Tallahassee. So I think we find out really early. But I'll say this, if Bama goes up 14-3 or something, I don't know that Indiana's built to come back from that against those athletes. And so I don't know what you have to do if you're Kurt Cignetti. Obviously, he's like the ultimate motivator, and he'll figure that out. But I do think the start of this game is probably more important because though I do think Indiana's a better team, I mean, Alabama's certainly more talented if you look at just across the roster. And that's trouble, I think, if you go down early in a situation like that. Now, with that said, we saw Bama come back last week. I'm not trying to say teams can't come back. But I think the start of this, what that layoff really looks like, what that, last week's prep for all four teams, especially Alabama, what that ends up benefiting them. I have no clue in this game. I'm going to lean Indiana just because I think they've played like a more complete team all year. But I think this could 1,000,000% go either way. I'll lean Indiana. I think it's low scoring. I think it's something weird. 22-17. I have no idea how they get to the 22, but they do. So I'm tired of picking round numbers or, football round numbers. 22-17, Indiana wins.
I'm an Alabama grad, but I try not to let my Alabama bias get in the way. I don't. I think I do a pretty damn good job of it because I hate all 16 teams in the SEC equally and all 136 equally. So I do. All of you are jokes in my opinions. If Alabama can do what it did in the second quarter and the first quarter and jump up to a 17-0 lead or even a 17-3 lead, you still have to remind yourself that this is Alabama we're talking about, the athletes that they have, the depth that they have, the ability of playmakers that are sitting and waiting for their opportunities to get onto the field is different than almost any school in college football. And they're going to be able to put a conversation starter on the board if they're trusting the weaponry and the defense to kind of bail them out of trouble. This is going to come down to Ty Simpson looking at how he did back in October and how he did in the second and third quarter against Oklahoma. If he does that, Alabama is going to win this football game. I don't know if he can do that again. I just simply don't. I think that it's going to be a very low-scoring game. And to be completely transparent, I think that favors Indiana. I think the lower scoring it is, Alabama is going to be in trouble. I will go final score 17-10. 17-13. I think that there's just enough for Indiana to get the job done. They rely heavily on their defense. They get one more break in the passing attack than Alabama does.
I'm going to go 23-20 Indiana. And I am very curious to see what Ryan Williams does here because for a while this season, it's been the body catching. It's been the drops. It's been spikes of peaks and valleys, great games, and then completely disappearing. His draft stock, his buzz is disappearing every game that he plays. if he comes up big in a college football playoff game in the Rose Bowl, people will remember why we fell in love with this kid last year. Not saying he can't go pro this year, but next year his stock is not exactly on the rise. So if he has a big game, he can surprise some people.
Let's keep it in the SEC. This will be Cole. Ole Miss UGA. So this is one where we were just kind of talking about it with the last breakdown, but Ole Miss getting to play last week in a game that sucked, shouldn't have ever happened. Just won't pull any punches here. How much of a benefit is that? Because we saw what happened with Georgia with a layoff last year. Now, obviously, Beck wasn't there, and so a different quarterback. But we saw that Georgia looked sluggish in that game. Again, maybe just knowing and there was the other stuff going on in New Orleans. I don't want to just lump it all to just the layoff. There was a lot going on that week. No quarterback, the stuff that happened off the field, and then playing a good Notre Dame team. I don't want to take anything away from them either. Can last week, I mean, this is less of an X's and O's thing, but we've broken down Ole Miss and Georgia a million times, so we know what their keys kind of are. Can having kind of a prep week, a practice week, how much can that benefit Ole Miss?
Yeah, so it could in a lot of ways. I think that, again, now understanding that Charlie Wise Jr. is in charge of the offense and you don't have a security blanket like Lane Kiffin to veto the play. And again, Charlie Wise Jr. was running the offense all year, but Lane Kiffin had final say. Pete Golding has final say. And Pete Golding is saying, we're letting you run the show. I'm worried about my defense. My defense has got to be able to play up to par. That is the priority number one. And we gave up over 420 yards of offense to Tulane. You don't think that Georgia can't do that to us after what they learned the first time around? I'm sorry. Like that's not going to be the case. So there's a lot of things that you can take away. How are you going to be able to establish the run? What type of play action passes work? Where do you just go play on third down? Do you try to catch Georgia slipping at the wrong time by running a trick player motion like that? Those are all things I think you can take away from this game. But remember what happened in that game, boys, for both sides. The first time that they met up earlier this year in Oxford. In Athens. The first punt of the game came 13 drives in. 13 drives in. It was scoring palooza nonstop by both teams. Trinidad Chambliss was orchestrating great executional drives, and he was killing it on second down to be able to build a good passing rapport. You saw Kewan Lacey have a really good first half, and then he really went off in the third quarter. I mean, he finished the day. My bad, not Kewan Lacey. Trinidad Chambliss. He finished the day with 2 touchdowns on the day. He averaged like 4.2 yards a play. You saw the explosives go. But then you also saw Gunnar Stockton play almost near perfect football the entire final 30 minutes of action. And he led his team once again into the end zone with 5 different scoring drives. And there was that big 4th down call that they had that gave them the momentum, and it kind of exhaled away from Ole Miss and into the favor of Georgia at that standpoint. If they don't get that 4th down execution, I think that Ole Miss wins that football game. And they're sitting at 12-0 going into this matchup, and they have the first round bye. But the things I like about this team, and the things I think that you can look at is, number one, if you are Ole Miss, can you establish a better rushing attack earlier in the game? One thing that was pretty evident is that Ole Miss, who has been known for being a run-oriented team, was able to score on the ground, but they weren't able to move the football on the ground efficiently. They had one run of over 15 yards downfield, and that was Trinidad Chambliss. They averaged 3.7 yards a play. They were held to under 100 rushing yards. Can you do anything with the combination of Logan Diggs, Kewan Lacey, and Trinidad Chambliss to be able to win on early downs and set yourself up on 3rd and short? Or better yet, just gain 7, gain 11, gain 14, and then kind of tire down this Georgia defense, which again has great depth. It's just not great at rushing. I mean, it's just not great at finishing drives with sacks. Outside of that, they do a pretty good job. The other thing that I want to see, if you are Ole Miss, especially offensively, can you win at the intermediate part of the field? Last game against Georgia, they had 6 plays, if I'm not mistaken, of over 18 yards downfield. That was just it. So I look at this game and I say to myself, if Georgia's able to take away the explosives, and they basically take away the obsolete runs, you're just going to dink and dunk your way to victory, and that's not going to happen. It just isn't for Ole Miss. You can't afford to win that way. So that benefits Georgia. Georgia, again, if they have a Gunnar Stockton performance like they did the first time around, they're going to win this game outright. I mean, he was 12 of 12, and I think if I'm not mistaken, he was 12 of 12 or 13 of 13 in the second half with 3 total touchdowns. He finished with 59 rushing yards. He had the big 22-yard scamper. He had 5 incompletions and 5 touchdown passes. I mean, and 5 total touchdowns. If he plays that way again, then guess what happens? Georgia goes into New Orleans with a quarterback that is much more prepared a second go around, and they win this game in dismantling fashion. There's no other way to put it, in my opinion. So if you're Ole Miss at this standpoint, can you force Zachariah Branch to become obsolete? If you're going to let Georgia win through the year, let them win with Noah Thomas, let them win with the tight end play, let them win with Dylan Bell, let them win with the freshman. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to allow Zachariah Branch to take a 6-yard slant pattern and go upfield for a gain of 18 or a gain of 24. If that happens in this game, then I think that may end up helping out Ole Miss, keeping this a low-scoring affair. You got to know where number 7 is on the field at all times. Lawson Lucky kicked your ass last game. He had 3 touchdowns. He finished with an average of 8.3 yards a play. He had 2 plays of over 10 yards down the field. Like, the dude was just everywhere and a security blanket for Gunner Stockton. You got to know where he is at all times. And the final thing that you got to do is you got to be able to run some stunts against Georgia's offensive line to be able to win on the interior and make their run have to push to the outside. Because if you push to the outside, I think that you feel pretty confident in the open field tackling. I think you feel pretty confident in Pete Golding having this team prepared when it comes to winning their battles toward the sidelines. And it kind of rotates everything up the middle for where that's been an area of strength for Georgia all year. You want them working toward the sidelines. If you do all those things, I think that you will be in a good spot if you're Ole Miss. But you also have to play perfect offensively. Because the problem in that matchup the first time around was they punted and Georgia didn't. And then they punted again and Georgia didn't. And then Georgia was able to go ahead and rattle their way off to an 8-point victory. And they felt pretty confident at that point. You had a big turnover on downs. They got 10 points in the fourth quarter. They got 17 points in the fourth quarter. You had 0. You cannot allow yourself to be in a position where your offense stalls at any moment. It is a pound for pound, whatever Georgia does, you at the match it.
What do we know about Kejuan Lacey's health? He was a little bit dinged up against
He's going to play.
Yeah.
I don't know what his entire status will be with the shoulder injury. We'll find out more information this week, but he will play in this game. That's not a question.
It feels like, I agree with a lot of what you said there. It feels like this has got to be Kejuan Lacey against the world, not saying that Ole Miss doesn't have the weapons to do it offensively and keep pace with Georgia. Obviously, they did that earlier on in the season. I've said all year, Georgia, they know how to finish. They're the Mike Tyson of college football. They just keep moving forward. They're an extremely difficult out. Ole Miss is going to need some stuff to break their way. They're going to need turnovers. They're going to need to limit Georgia offensively as best they can. There are opportunities to get this Georgia defense. They're not as impenetrable as we've seen over the last handful of years, but it's going to have to start with Kejuan Lacey because you don't want to put Trinidad Chambliss in situations where it's 2nd and long, 3rd and long consistently throughout the day. It's not to say that he can't overcome those things, but you want to make it easy for Chambliss and almost kind of give him a game manager day, that sort of situation. Let him work within the offense. He's a fantastic athlete. Let him make those plays that he can make with his legs, of course. But if you can keep Georgia guessing there and you can have consistent success running the football, it's going to melt away the clock. You're going to control the game in terms of time of possession. I think that's going to be the best avenue for Ole Miss, but it's going to be an uphill climb. This is a pretty damn good Georgia defense. Still, all things considered, it's not what we've seen in the past, but I think Kejuan Lacey is going to be dog tired. And if his health is anyway an issue in this game and he goes out, I don't know where Ole Miss goes after that.
I just have a hard time seeing Ole Miss do this. I would love for Ole Miss to do this. I think it'd be a great story because of all the Lane stuff. I mean, everybody likes an underdog, right? Like, so it doesn't even have to be like, oh, I hate Georgia. I mean, they could be playing anybody and it'd be like, oh, this would be fun to root for them. I just don't know that I don't think they're as complete. I think Georgia's playing really well right now. Now, again, you wonder about the layoff and the rest, and I'll talk about that in all 4 matchups, of course. But the way that they played against Texas, and I know that Georgia Tech gave, but Georgia Tech took BYU down to the wire too. Like, I think Georgia Tech's a good team that kind of lost their way a little bit defensively last month of the season. People forget they started out red hot. And it's a rivalry, right? That all that considered, the way that Georgia looked against Texas, the way they looked against Bama obviously in the SEC championship. And shoot, I mean, even early in the year, I mean, they weren't even playing their best ball when they beat Ole Miss, right? Like that's really what it comes down to me. I don't think Georgia was playing their best football when they beat Ole Miss earlier. And if they're playing anything close to their best football, anything in between that, I have a hard time, unless Ole Miss is just perfect or really capitalizes on Georgia mistakes, which I don't think Georgia needs to take a lot of risks in this. I think Georgia finds a way to win. I actually think they cover. Give me Georgia by 10. 31. Actually, I go 34-24. UGA.
I forget what the score was of the first game. It feels
43-35.
Yeah, I was higher than this.
Yeah. I think I agree with that, TJ. I'll give Ole Miss a little bit more, and now I'm going to say 35-27 Georgia. But do we think Lane shows up to this like half stoned like he did at the Texas Bowl last night?
Speaking of, before Cole gives his prediction, did you see Snoop Dogg filled that punt? Speaking of half stoned.
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
He's pretty damn good.
I mean, his son play at UCLA?
Or USC. He was at Bishop Gorman. I remember
One of those. Yeah. I mean, I was like, obviously there's good genes within the family. Good
yeah,
for Snoop,
dude,
man.
Dude's old and also like probably stoned, like could call somebody about that.
Listen, I interviewed him the night that he went into the WWE Hall of Fame. He got off his bus and it's wafting off the bus. So it's not a question of is he? It's what's the level?
Yeah, how stoned does he need to call like a
right?
Addictionologist or something like that?
It's functional. He's very functional. Yeah.
Yeah. Cole, what's your score here? Let's get off Snoop Dogg for a minute.
Call me Hyde. I think this is going to be a lot closer of a game than people want to give credit to, because I can't doubt Ole Miss playing with basically house money and the sheer will of wanting to prove Lane Kiffin wrong at this point. So I think that Georgia is going to win this game, because I think that right now, if you told me there was one matchup to where we will guarantee not see the team on the bye lose, this would be the one. I just think Georgia is playing like they are the most complete team in college football right now. So that means that you got to be perfect if you are Ole Miss. I don't think it's possible to be perfect against Georgia. But I do think that this is going to be a down-to-the-finish moment to where you're going to see Gunnar Stockton get 1 third-down conversion to be able to ice the game late and not get the ball back to Trinidad Chambliss. And that's ultimately what's going to decide it. But I'm going to go 28-24. I just see a scenario where, as of this point, I can't doubt Georgia, but I also believe that we're not going to see this mollywop and that people want to go ahead and just simply expect.
I like it. Before we go on to this last one, which this is the game that I might be looking forward to the most, as crazy as that is. If you're watching this on Twitter or X, we can actually see your comments now, but you can't see ours back and you can't see the rest of the live chat. So we'd love if you came over and watched it on YouTube. If you're on YouTube watching this, we've got an okay crowd today. Appreciate Eric and Dan and Stingray and all those in the comments. We'd love if you were subscribed. And if you're already subscribed, we'd love if Eric's a good recruiter on here. You know, you think Kirby's a good recruiter. Eric sends this out to a bunch of people, and I see him in the comments like, hey, Eric, thanks for sending me the link. I'd love if you guys would send this to a friend. If you like this content or hate it, that's fine too. Yep. Some of you guys hate it. If you feel any way about it, I'd love if you sent this to a friend and said, hey, come watch these idiots talk about football before the NFL kicks off. So appreciate all those that are in here, and let's continue to grow it. I think this game is one of the more fun ones. To me, it's the most unpredictable. Again, we all kind of we went 3 for 3. Actually, we've gone 3 for 3 on all of them. But like, I could see the path for Miami winning. I could see the path for Bama winning. I feel really good about UGA. But this is the game that I think is the most unpredictable of the 4. And hopefully that just makes for a phenomenal football game that we get to watch when Oregon and Texas Tech go up against each other. This has nothing to do with the game, but I love Dan Lanning. I love that he admitted that this should be a home game for Texas Tech. Like and I don't think that's rat poison. I don't think he's trying to hype them up. I think he just truly believes that the sport sucks in a lot of ways right now. And it's not fair to Texas Tech to not, their great fans, to not get a home game. And I love that from Dan Lanning because, again, I don't think it's trying to play mental games. I don't think it's rat poison. I think he's just saying, like, dude, their kids don't get to play a home game. We got to play one. Like, they should get to play that too. I think he truly loves what he does. Not that the other 130 coaches don't love what they do. Yeah, you're getting paid millions of dollars to coach football. You should love it. But I think he truly loves what he does. I think he cares about kids. I think he cares about what's right for the sport. And I will get to actually talking about X's and O's and breakdowns and stuff like that in a minute. Dan Lanning is so impressive to me. And I loved that he came out and said that. I didn't do like a video on it or anything like that. Just kind of knew I'd mention it here. This game should be a home game. And to be fair, the fans in Athens deserve a home game too. And the fans in Bloomington deserve a home game too. And wherever that last one is, I don't know if the fans in Columbus really deserve anything or not. But yeah, that spot deserves a home game too, if we're being honest. But yeah, I would like to see that changed. I don't know if it will. Maybe when we go to 16, they could make the first 2 rounds so that everybody gets one, or just eliminate the bye completely and give everybody a home game there. Would be fun. But anyway, we'll go Tom first on this one just because it is Big Ten with Oregon. But thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Oregon is favored by 2.5. It's the closest spread of any of these second round games. I'm going to do this. I'll give you guys the argument for why I think Oregon will win, and I'd like to hear from you guys what your argument is of Texas Tech winning this game, because I think this could really go either way. Looking at least from what little we can process of Oregon versus James Madison in the first round, a lot of people are just looking at the box score and saying, well, there were a lot of yards that Oregon gave up against JMU, 500 yards, 34 points, those sorts of things. You have to understand what Oregon put on the field in the second half after being up, 34-6 at halftime. They completely took their foot off the gas. Now, I won't say entirely completely. I have to retract that because Dante Moore still threw some interceptions against James Madison in the second half. And I didn't quite understand why Dante Moore was left in that game. Dante Moore has tremendous peaks and he has his valleys where he can get into being a little bit turnover prone, a little bit careless with the ball. But for the most part, he makes very good decisions with the football. He is a dual threat guy. He wants to stay in the pocket. He wants to be a passer. But if you ask him to utilize design run or RPO, or if he needs to improvise, he can do all of those things. It makes him extremely dangerous. I think this Oregon offense is going to be as healthy as it's been in a while. They were banged up middle of the season. They got some valuable pieces back against James Madison, like guys like DeCorian Moore and company kind of get back into the mix, and they look very sharp. They didn't even need to really lean on their wide receivers, former Florida State guy Malik Benson to that point. But they have some outstanding tight ends that they are able to will their way down the field however they like. This is an Oregon team that wants to run the football. And the biggest thing I've heard about Texas Tech is that this is the number 1 or a top 10, number 2 rushing defense or defense in the country. I forget what the stat is. And I've said it before on this show. Tell me who they've played.
Number 1, my apologies. You were right.
If all you're pointing at is the 2 games against BYU, Texas Tech is about to have a wake-up call. Now, I don't necessarily think this is Oregon just boat racing Texas Tech. I think this is going to be a very competitive game. This could be a high-scoring shootout, but Texas Tech, I think, is going to be challenged in a way they have never been challenged this season. So this is a very new experience for McGuire and company. On the flip side of the ball, I think the gift for this defense for many years has been solid secondary play, active linebackers, and a good pass rush. They're better in the interior of the defensive line than they were last year. Bear Alexander actually has decided to play football this year, and he's pretty damn good. So the interior of that defensive line and their edges are outstanding. If they can create problems for Baron Morton and company and make him force some plays, maybe get behind schedule, that's going to be the best bet for Oregon. But I still expect Texas Tech to be able to run the football and throw the football with great efficiency against this Oregon team. It's just going to be a matter of, in my opinion, who blinks, who makes that critical back-breaking mistake, because I do think the margin for error in this game is razor thin.
I mean, I'll push back and say that, yes, you can go argue who has Texas Tech played. I don't really care. I look at the talent level in the front 7. I look at what they got at the safety position. They got dudes. They have guys that you are going to see after this game, win or lose, play on the Sunday level. They are. You're going to have a first-round pick in David Bailey. You're going to have an all-mustache guy in Jacob Rodriguez, and certainly a Pro linebacker.
Top 5 in the Heisman, too. Should have gone to New York, but top 5 in the Heisman.
Invited to New York. At least should have been invited to New York. They will fly to the football. They will be able to make plays behind the line of scrimmage. And if you have Will Stein kind of doing that double duty of building a roster at Kentucky and also doing things for Oregon, the way that Colin Klein did for Texas A&M in that matchup, there could be some blundering moments to where Texas Tech is going to capitalize. They're going to put you in a blunder of concern, and it is going to lead to a lot of miscues that ultimately favor the Red Raiders offense. Now, I do question the Red Raiders offense. I do think that there are some limitations when it comes to Baron Morton as a passer. but they can run the football. They got dudes that will get open in space. They got guys who make plays after contact. So we're going to see Oregon get tested on both sides of the ball. What I wonder about is what can Texas Tech's defense, Rasheal Woods calling the shots, learn from that matchup against JMU to put Dante Moore in a position of concern? Because he had 2 bad interceptions in that game. Let's just call it as is. He had the one right before halftime, and then he had one in the end zone. You're doing that against JMU with how good this linebacking core is and how good this defensive line is, with how many plays we could see David Bailey in the interior pass rush get pressure on Moore, and he's throwing behind a receiver like DeCorian Moore, or if Evan Stewart's able to play in this game, or Kenyon Sadiq, or Gary Bryan, or Malik Benson. You're going to have a linebacker or a nickel defender in the right place at the right time that can turn the wheels on and take it back and set up Texas Tech in a short field position to where they'll just get 3 points, and they'll 3-and-D in a death in this matchup, even if it's got to be like a 12-0 score. So I think that there are so many things to where you look at Texas Tech defensively. I'm not even worried about them in this game. What I'm worried about is, can their offense go toe-to-toe if we're watching Dante Moore start slinging it around the yard? I don't know if I can trust that. But from a defensive standpoint, I'll say the bold thing out loud. I think that going forward, Texas Tech may be the best defense in the college football playoff.
What is, and I'm looking this up just to see like how off I truly am, or if I'm crazy with this. How does Oregon's strength of schedule compare to Texas Tech's? So Oregon's at 14, and this is ESPN, so like all of them are going to be a little bit different for sure. ESPN has Oregon at 14, has Texas Tech at 54. So, all right, I'll buy that a little bit.
But to be fair, both teams were tested by one roster. One team beat them, another team didn't.
Yeah,
Indiana tested Oregon, and BYU tested Texas Tech.
I think that
Penn State tested Oregon. The mighty Penn State Nittany Lions.
Oh, yeah. I was just saying. Now, I will say, to make Tom maybe a little happy about this.
Cool and Tom Handjobber, you mean? That's my name now.
The Penn State that played on September 27th is maybe, I think they were broken in that game. I do think they were a little bit better. Not as good as we thought. Not number 3 good. I do think they were a little bit better, and that win shouldn't be a bad win for Oregon by any means. The way that they played at Iowa didn't instill as much confidence, but then the way they beat USC did. I don't think there's really much else on their schedule that you can take away. Like, they lost Indiana at home. Indiana, obviously a very good team, but look at the rest. I mean, the same way that we say was Texas Tech really tested. I mean, Texas Tech also had that Utah game in there and just decimated them. Utah finished in the top 15. So I don't know. Big 12 doesn't get as much love. I understand that. And they did it outside of BYU and Utah. Yeah, they didn't play a soul. But I don't know that I'm like looking at Oregon's schedule like, oh, they've been battle-tested murderers row by any means. And so I think this is the biggest test that both of them will have. I think that's pretty fair. That's probably fairly easy to say for almost every team that's playing, minus maybe Ohio State and Indiana this weekend. Like, this is the biggest test that most of these teams will have. Maybe Georgia wouldn't be in that category too. So, but for 5 of the 8 teams playing this weekend, this is their toughest game of the year, the best competition they've played. And that makes sense. These are all top 10 teams at this point, right? So I think when you look at that, I tend to think that Oregon is probably a little bit more of a complete team, and Texas Tech might be a little bit more of a gritty, find a way to win team. I don't know. That's like my like 30,000 foot. What does that mean when they actually play? I have no idea. I think Texas Tech wins this thing by 3. I have no score. I have no thought. I mean, I'll give a score 25-22 just because I refuse to do pretty scores today. But yeah, I have no clue. This game to me could go one of any way. I think I have a little bit more confidence in Moore, but I also think I have a little bit more confidence in Texas Tech's defensive front. And so, man, I don't know. It's the game I'm looking forward to the most. I never thought I'd be looking forward to a Texas Tech Oregon game like I am. It's the game I feel like I know the least about. It's the game I've looked the most up. It's the film that I've watched the most, and I still have no definitive answer. So I'll lean with Texas Tech. Maybe that's my heart more than anything. But give me Texas Tech to win it and go on to end up playing Indiana.
Come on, Han Jabroni, let's go. What's your pick?
Always excuses when it comes to the Big 12. Listen, this is the biggest game in the history of Texas Tech football. Same thing for Indiana. So I'm really excited about this. Give me Oregon, 41-38.
Okay, so you are at least keeping this thing close.
Give me the over for sure. Give me the over.
I will agree with you on both points here, and this is where my brain goes because I try to be as unbiased as possible because I hate all teams equally, as said previous times. If it's a high-scoring game, it does favor Oregon. If it's a low-scoring game, I think it favors Texas Tech. What I wonder about in this matchup is, are you going to be fully healthy enough from an Oregon standpoint in the offensive personnel to be able to counteract if Texas Tech's defensive line shuts down this rushing game? Because I think that this is one where you're going to need to have a Gary Bryant, a Kenyon Sadiq, a Malik Benson. I think Evan Stewart, his role, if it's even a little bit, is going to have to be big enough in this game for you to deliver. And I feel like that right now, the way that I just look up and down at the ability to pick your matchups and feel like that there is not a legit number one receiver for Texas Tech, but they all are damn good. Like all the numbers across the board, from what you got with Carter, what you got with Eakin, what you got with Virgil, what you got with Douglas, they're almost identical. This is quite literally because I have money on it, and there's no other logic behind it. I'm going to take Oregon to win this one, 38-34. But I don't feel good because I really think that Texas Tech might be the better team, but I took money, and I would like to see my money cash in.
Tom, what was yours? You had Oregon as well?
I had 41-38 Oregon. Yeah, I think it'll be close. I think it'll be competitive.
Y'all are leaving me on an island with Texas Tech again this week.
Well, again, we're Power 2 stands, and you're for the ACC, so it all makes sense.
Listen, I'm going to take this victory lap as many times as I can. I did pick Miami, so you guys can suck it. I took Bama too. Did I take Bama?
Yeah.
Yeah. Take that.
You were 4-0 last week. We were 3-1.
I'll go 1-3 this week. Just watch. But anyway, all right. On to our last one. Kyle Whittingham in Michigan. Okay, here's the question I want to ask, because I've done a video on fit, and you guys can talk about that too. But the real angle I want to take here is, did Kyle Whittingham resign from Utah 2 days after Sharon Moore was in a padded cell because he knew he wanted to take this job? Like, is that, did the stars just align perfect? Like, are we going conspiracy or the stars just align? Because my take is, I'm not a big conspiracy guy, just in general. My take is that the stars don't usually align that well. Is there a chance that he knew this and like they didn't want to just make the hire right away? They kind of went a couple of different options. I know I'm really putting on the Alex Jones tinfoil hat right now, but I don't want them putting stuff in the water. But anyway, all that said, like, Tom, is there conspiracy? Like, did he resign to take this job?
I'll back it up even further.
Oh, let's go.
There were people surrounding the Michigan program and even national pundits who said they were hearing rumors of this Sharon Moore situation brewing in the spring.
Yeah.
Even before that. So if the Michigan administration was wise, wouldn't they have kind of already started out putting out feelers just to kind of be like, hey, we're not sure where this is going. This might be available. What are your thoughts? That sort of situation. Now, we've heard for years out of Utah that Whittingham was approaching the end of his career, but it kind of felt like the narrative had changed a little bit at Utah, is that it almost kind of felt like, hey, we're not getting to where we want to get to. I don't know what Utah's expectations are or goals are, like if they expect to compete for a national championship or even just a conference championship win and you play in a major bowl game, something like that. But it felt like Whittingham was just not being pushed out, but just kind of being politely asked to call it a career. That's kind of the way I read it. I don't have any inside information on that. Kyle Whittingham, I think, is a very good fit for this job in terms of what he brings to the table. He has basically run a Big Ten style of team out west. I've said that about Utah for many years. Like, they kind of play like Iowa, but they have a lot more gifted athletes, unfortunately, on offense. So I think he's going to fit well into the Big Ten. This is a stabilizer hire. this is a bit of a Band-Aid. I don't think Kyle Whittingham is going to be the guy for many, many years to come at Michigan. I think this is a for now hire. This is a, hey, everything was going to hell. This person is inheriting a tremendous amount of BS. This is not the same as what James Franklin inherited at Penn State coming from Vanderbilt, but I think it's going to be similar in that more and more is going to continue to come out about Sharon Moore and the issues within the program and the issues within the athletic department as a whole. Like, it's not football. It's not just football at Michigan that's had problems. So I think if you're Kyle Whittingham, this is a tremendous opportunity. This is a blue blood program, one of the best jobs in the sport. And you're getting to do this in a situation where you kind of got to gracefully exit Utah, and then you get to take on this other thing. So if there was that tinfoil hat situation of, hey, somebody reaching out to an agent or reaching out to him directly to be like, hey, what's your interest in this? Maybe that lines up well. And we also heard kind of in the rumblings and the leading up to the Ohio State-Michigan game that things were not okay with Sharon and that there were critical people within the Michigan ecosystem that were looking to get rid of Sharon Moore. So this could have been in the works for many weeks. I think this is good for now. I don't think it's a long-term fix because I think eventually you're going to see Michigan fans be like, hey, we didn't want to just inherit the Utah staff. They want to compete for the national championship. And I don't know. This Michigan man narrative, please take it out back and Old Yeller it. I'm tired of hearing of it because you've proven for years that you're a pack of cheaters and liars. So the Michigan man concept, as much as that's supposed to be some glorious statesman, political, presidential type figure, it's BS. So I'm tired of hearing of it. And I do have to apologize to Michigan fans because most of this year I have been saying you guys are going to go 8-4. And I will be the first person to say I was wrong. You're going to go 9-4 because you're probably going to lose here in a couple of days.
Okay, let me give some love here to Atomic Stuntman, who gives
greatest nickname ever. Thank you.
Here's the comment that we'll really feature. Hand jobber is better than being a fluffer. So appreciate the I don't even have a here's a noise for you. For this. We appreciate the love there on the super chat from again, Atomic Stuntman 6750. It does suck that this Michigan-Texas game, and I'll let Cole go on in just a minute on Whittingham. It does suck this Michigan-Texas game should be like it should just absolutely be bigger than it is, and hopefully we'll enjoy it when it does come on. But I just want to take a moment to lament how bowl games suck. But Cole, go ahead.
Bowl games don't suck. You make the most out of it. They're just not as fun as they used to be. That's all.
They're not as fun. Yeah, they suck compared to what they used to be.
It's like going to the movies as like a 40-year-old versus going when you were a kid. It's the same thing. Like you still enjoy it. It's just not as much fun as you did when you were a kid hanging out with grandpa, and you got to pay $40 for now everybody to go sit down and shut up for 3 hours. I'm not the right guy to talk about this job because of, just to be completely transparent, Kyle Whittingham is my favorite coach of all time. He has been my favorite coach since the second I saw him get hired at Utah. What he's been able to build at Utah, what he's been able to accomplish at a place that constantly is getting overlooked at the national perspective. I have said on multiple occasions, if there was one staff that I would ever work for as a coach, just randomly take a blank check, it could be for 50 cents, it would be Kyle Whittingham's. I think he is tough-nosed. I think he is physical. I think that he has shown you that there is a way to win, and there is the only way to win is following my pathway. And he's done it with lesser tier talent for his entire tenure at Utah. He beats the shit every single time that he meets up with Lincoln Riley. And that's going to be a scary thing for Lincoln Riley to have to accept now that he's in the Big Ten and he's got to go face off against Michigan. He is a program builder, and constantly you see as more and more and more talented players, first, second, top 50 selections, top 75 picks, make it to the NFL, and it's because they come out of Salt Lake City. And I think that once again, and I say this to be very much disrespectful to Penn State and to Michigan, because if I am, an SEC shill, as people like to say, I think it's complete and utter malpractice that somehow, some way, you two can run a coerced psycho job coaching search and still walk away with the two best candidates.
Must be nice. Must
It
be
has to be
nice.
such a lovely feeling to
Must
know
be
that
freaking nice.
you knocked a grand slam out of the park for Kyle Whittingham, and you hit a home run when it came to Matt Campbell. And both of these guys are going to strengthen the identity of the Big Ten. They're going to strengthen the narrative that the Big Ten has surpassed the SEC, and they're both going to win in the Big Ten. I'm going to fight back with Tom and say that I do not think that you will see Kyle Whittingham be the long-term answer there, but I think that he will be there for 5 years. And I think in those 5 years, you will see instantaneous success. And you will watch as he is able to turn this program into a light that is still very reminiscent of the Harbaugh days mentality-wise, but completely different from how we run things. And that's a good thing for a place like Michigan that has to get further and further away from what we saw with Jim Harbaugh and more into what needs to be a new model for football for the long term. I say this kindly. You upgraded at head coach beyond a measure in so many ways from Sherrone Moore. And here's how I know that people who want to fight back and argue that, well, he's 66 years old. What makes him such a good hire? Do me a favor and say when Kyle Whittingham, when Jim Harbaugh left to go to the NFL and Kyle Whittingham's name was floated around as a top 10 coach in college football, you would not call this a home run hire. What changed? What changed? He went to the Big 12. He lost 2 games this year, and he had his team fighting for a college football playoff berth again. And if he beats one team in BYU, they're playing in Arlington, and they may beat Texas Tech, and they may be going to the college football playoff. Like, anybody who wants to argue that this is a bad hire is simply saying it because of his age. Stop using the ageism BS. Use the reality. 2 years ago, this would have been a top 5 hire in college football. I think this hiring cycle, it is a top 5 hire in college football.
I need to push back on something.
There you go.
This is not going to look at all like the Harbaugh era, because the Harbaugh era was loaded with violations, recruiting sanctions, and cheating to win. So if now the edict is that Kyle Whittingham needs to run a tight ship and clean everything up,
right,
and everybody has to be choir boys, Michigan isn't going to be Michigan. They are going to be closer to Minnesota than they are going to be to what Michigan's expectation is.
And this
because
is
if you're running, I'm sorry. If you're running a clean program in college football, you probably aren't winning a whole lot, are you? Michigan has not been running a clean program for a very long time. Kyle Whittingham now has to come in and he has to run a squeaky clean Michigan program. They aren't doing shit in the next 5 years.
You know what? Fine. In 5 years from now, I will make a bet with you, and it'll be a long-term bet. Because guess what's going to happen? Michigan's still going to win. They're just going to win the right way because K-Witt's going to prove
right way,
coach. The K-Witt way. That's what it's going to be. It's going to happen that way.
A lot of the stuff that they were having violations on and stuff, well, not the cheating, on field and off field. A lot of the stuff that you would get in trouble for, they can just pony up money and do legally now. So I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle of both of you. I do think he's successful.
Tom Hannifan right now, ladies and gentlemen. Tom does not have to do this in return, but there will at least be 2 playoff appearances by Michigan in the next 5 years underneath Kyle Whittingham.
I agree with that.
2 playoff wins. And if neither of those things happen, I will pull a version of Ryan Reynolds with Jason Bateman in the movie The Change Up and get your face doing this tattooed on my right shoulder. Tom was right, Cole was wrong. I will guarantee you that right now here on the show. In 5 years, 2 playoff wins, at least 2 college football playoff appearances for Kyle Whittingham at Michigan. They will still be winning. They'll be winning the K-Witt way, and I will not have to get a back tattoo of you doing this.
I just love the idea of us continuing to be friends and working together for the next 5 years on the Power 2. That makes my heart very warm. I love that.
We have something special coming up. Next Monday, we are going to the FCS National Championship in Nashville, Tennessee. We'll have a fun time there. I have some calls to make tomorrow to try and set something up there on that Tuesday. If you happen to be in the Nashville area or anywhere close, maybe we can do something there around lunchtime. So put a pencil mark on your calendar if you're watching this or listening. This year has been fun. This is our last show of the year. We will do something after the playoff game. Maybe Friday. We've kind of tossed around some ideas. After the playoff next round, we'll do something to kind of recap them. I think Sunday would be kind of a long stretch between now and then. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. We appreciate you guys being here all year. This was a fun year to do this. I had some thoughts on the Whittingham stuff too, but I did a full video on it. So I'll link that at the end of this clip and you can go watch it if you want to hear my rambling takes on it. So Tom, Cole, thanks for hanging out. Enjoy the football this week.
Yes, sir.